everybody. Happy Monday to y'all. I'm apparently Southern today. Do you guys have that disease? I have this disease where if I hang around with people with accents, then I start doing that accent. There's got to be an actual, like, scientific DSM-4 name for that affliction. I don't know what it is. Hello, hi, hello, Mrs. Sullivan. Skull Mama 66. Go. I don't know what that's from, but I love it. Anything to do with like skulls and horror movies, I just makes me tingle, makes my nipples hard, makes my nose tickle. I like all that stuff. So thank you guys for joining us, and I'm very excited to have Devon West on. She is a mentor of mine. She is a friend of mine. And she is one of the people that have been kind of on the front lines of social strategy for a very long time. I think I saw her try to get on, and maybe we can get her back on again. I hope everybody is feeling well, sheltering in place as needed. I know there's some protests going on. And I got to say, I see both sides of this, but what I encourage you to do is be safe. Hello, Devon. It takes about 10 seconds for Devon to join. We'll get her on in a second. Hello, Sonia. Hello, Elle Swimmer. Glad to have you guys here. Happy Monday. Hello, Devon.
Hi. Just getting on here. I'm trying to find my good filter. There we go. Oh, I have, like, as I mentioned, I do not have a tripod because I never do selfies. So I'm like propping this up on books. There we go. But when I tested it, I was like full frame, not half frame. So I had to remove a couple of books on mental toughness.
You look striking for. Oh, wow.
Those are just the size books I needed.
You look strikingly gorgeous, my friend.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I put on eyebrows since we last chatted.
You know what? I did too, because you made me feel self-conscious about it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make you feel self-conscious. I was like looking at my brow products that I use. My favorite is Benefit Goof Proof Brow Pencil. And I'm like, goof proof, challenge accepted. I'm sure I can goof that. But anyway. Just don't get too close. I don't like close-up selfies, especially, at my age. So.
Oh, my friend, I'm so glad to have you. And I know that you are very busy and very sought after right now. And I deeply appreciate you taking the time.
Of course. I always love chatting with you.
Oh, you're kind. So I'm going to just jump right in. You are always on the front line of social, and you are always out thinking 2 or 3 steps ahead. A lot of my audience are influencers, people that are either well established in their follower base or just wanting to start. And I'd love to pick your brain about strategies and advice that you have to help continue for them to grow their brand and their follower base.
Sure. So I'll just start chatting and you can just ask questions. But I think it's definitely, there's always room for more creators. So I think that even though there's, probably in any vertical, there's probably huge macro influencers. I think one thing I would say is that, there's always room for your unique opinion and your voice. So if you're just starting out, like, don't get discouraged. But it does take time to build up an audience. And I think that, you have to dedicate a certain amount of time and energy to, like, basically it's like a slow build and slow burn until it's not, like you can take off all of a sudden. And, maybe you can speak to that because you have a sizable audience now, Whitney. But, like, you have to basically put in the sweat equity to, like, not only just create the content, but to engage with your community. And that may mean, like, seeking out new people and commenting on their posts. It might mean just, like, interacting with people who are already following with you. Start getting, it's like, how do you grow from 10 followers to 100 followers to 1,000? Like, and then, like, that's exponential growth. And, like, each of those, like, hurdles that I mentioned, it's like your first 10 followers could be, like, your biggest advocates for a long, long time. So, make sure that those people feel valued and connected to you, and, kind of scale it up from there. One thing that I found that's been effective is actually like in addition to commenting on, replying to comments and commenting on people's posts, is like replying to people's stories, because then they know that you're actually like looking at their content, like, you're not just like comment spamming. There are things that's time consuming, but it definitely is off, because investing a little bit of time, if you invest like an hour in that every single day, that will pay off for you. And just think too, like, that's something that like entire brands have been built around building. But even though that example has been out there for a while, so many brands aren't doing that. And it's hard for brands to invest in like this community, like proactive engagement, because there's like not a straight line through to ROI on that. And that's where like influencers can have like a better advantage in building their audience, because you're not paying yourself an hourly rate, you're just investing this time to build and start to gain momentum. So that's where I would start.
I have a question for you, and I've learned by doing these the last couple of days, if you and I try and talk at the same time, it slows down the connection. So
okay.
my safe word, I'm just gonna raise my hand. 2 years ago, they told us that to drive engagement in the algorithm, you had to respond to comments with 5 words, not just emojis, but 5 words. Is that still a consistent piece of advice?
I don't think so. I've actually seen something from Instagram. It was either there's an Instagram account that if you're interested in like using Instagram as part of your business, which, if you're an influencer, your business, I'll put it in your comments after. I'll tag them there. I think it's either like Instagram for creators or some variation of that. And so sometimes they'll do Q&As like that. And I'm pretty sure I saw in there that that isn't a thing.
Okay.
They don't. So I wouldn't worry about that. And then you're also kind of like trying to come up with a way of like making a 3-word sentence into 5. I don't think that's like necessarily worth your time. Like if you just want to be like, oh, I love that pic, like I think that's fine. Just don't like put I love that pic on like 500 posts in a row, because you're going to get flagged up for spam. And also you want to like put a real comment that's meaningful. So
well, it's something like, to your point, it's scalable when you get 100 comments. It's not scalable when you have 2,500 comments that you're trying to engage authentically with all of those.
Absolutely. And I think for your influencer followers who have larger audiences, then just thinking about like when they post, to go in and reply to people like the first however many comments, or like right when they post, start replying to those people so that other people see the engagement. They still feel included, even if they don't specifically get a response. So, I mean, like Chelsea Handler's a good example. Like she obviously has a hugely popular Instagram, and you'll see that she's gone in and she's replied to like random people, not just like blue check celebrities. But like she's not going to reply to everybody, because there's no way that she could. But I think that you think, oh, there's a chance she might reply, or that she'll see, or she is reading these. And it feels a little bit more meaningful to leave a comment when you think that that person might be seeing the comment.
Yeah. What do you advise people about getting the blue check? What have you learned about? Is it easy to do, hard to do? How do you get it?
So actually this was just addressed by Adam Mosseri, who is like the head of Instagram. He had like an Ask Me Anything last week. And it's definitely a pain point for people and for brands that want to get the blue check. It feels like this status symbol. Their take on it is that it's really there for people who might be confused, or there might be some confusion over who that is, or if it's real. Like, so if no one's trying to impersonate you, you might not be able to like get the blue check right away. I think it's still worth applying, but don't be disappointed if you don't get it right away, and then maybe just try again like a month later. But it's not like validating you as a business or like your worth as an influencer in any way. So it's nice to have, but I don't think that you should make it a huge goal, because it's kind of out of your control.
Yeah, I got very lucky. I got mine on my first application, and you just go into Instagram, and then I don't remember off the top of my head, but it was kind of a settings thing. you applied, you had to take a picture of your driver's license,
Yeah.
and submit that. I heard a rumor, because everything it seems rumor and conjecture, is they look to see if you had a lot of press to kind of figure out if you
that could
had,
be.
And at that time when I applied, my passive aggressive lunch bags were kind of going viral. So there was a lot of third party stories about it. And I think
That's actually
what,
a good idea, thinking about like capitalizing on a moment. So if you're about to get into some big collab or some press, that might be a good time to do it, to try at least.
Yeah, because I talked to an account that had 300,000 followers who had been trying for over a year and couldn't get one.
Yeah, I had a brand founder who wasn't able to get one, but then her surname was different in her like driver's license than what it was on her account, and she didn't really want to be known by that other name, you know. So then she's like, okay, never mind, just forget it, you know. So yeah, a bit tricky.
You have been a mentor to me in so many ways, both personally and professionally, and we've been working together, I think, for, oh my God, almost 10 years now.
Oh my God, no, because how is that possible? Because we're only like 25. So
I know. We're so young and dainty. And one of the paths that I've watched you walk down so beautifully is your time in the beauty space and really rising to the top of your career in strategizing for your beauty, and how important beauty is to the sector, and kind of set some trends. Can you do you disagree or agree with that? And can you kind of talk to what your opinions are about the beauty sector online and in social?
yeah, I mean, I definitely think that you know, beauty is so backing up a bit, I guess. I think early days of social, it wasn't as image based in terms of like photos, right? Yeah. Twitter was very text based. Even Facebook, like, remember there used to be like literally just text updates on Facebook at times. And then when it moved to like more, you know, selfie based and mobile app based and the visual medium started really predominating in the social space. And so beauty was like naturally positioned to be a category that definitely took advantage of that. And, you know, I think beauty has, there's sort of a few different elements. There's like a ton of new brands that are like direct to consumer. They're like born on Instagram. I think even, you know, maybe in concert with like when retail brands started being like born on Instagram brands, but certainly there's a lot of examples of beauty brands that like built an audience and then started selling direct and then got into a major retailer. And then there's like, there's obviously the retailers that are like, you know, basically able to talk about a range of different brands and reach a lot of people at scale. And then there's the influencers. And I think because influencers in beauty were already huge on YouTube, and like how to blank is like the biggest search term on YouTube. Yeah. And basically YouTube creators have to cross promote their content everywhere else, just like other, you know, brands and marketers. So influencers, I think, were like on the really cutting edge of like using the new mediums. There seem to be, because they don't have to go through a huge approval process and find budget and, you know, creative budget and get resources. They can just decide to do it themselves. So they're able to kind of take that leap. And I think that the brands that are kind of paying attention to, you know, what influencers are doing and how they're capturing an audience and creating things that are interesting and new and engaging with people. Those are the categories that, you know, tend to like, it's kind of like the brands can be like a fast follow, but influencers, in my view, have been really first in doing a lot of the new things. It's first in starting trends. They're first in like doing the challenges and stuff like that. So, you know, definitely gives it for like the brand side social media team, they have to be very much in tune with what's going on and able to like be agile and react.
I agree with that. And I also think for the content creators that are on this channel, your point is excellent in that, you know, we don't have any overhead and we can't afford to fail. We can afford to go out and be like, hey, I tried that new app and I completely blew it. Or, you know, I tried that type of content and it didn't work. So the content creators are kind of the ones that are out front flailing, and you get this kind of backdraft of people getting to learn from their mistakes about what is sticking. And as an influencer, I don't mind that at all. I love being able to do that, and flailing and failing around.
Yeah. I'm sure you haven't failed, but
Yeah.
it's fun trying new things. But I think, you were talking at the outset of the call, or live, regarding like what's new and what apps people are using. And definitely, like you mentioned, HouseParty, like we talked about this like 3 years ago, and because it had like a spike in growth then. And now I've definitely seen even ads, like when I'm on my Twitter feed, they're like advertising for people to like use HouseParty and download it. And I don't know yet if it's a great place for influencers or brands like to build an audience. So I think that's still, it's like a watch this space kind of thing. Another place that I'm really watching is Twitch. Twitch is now owned by Amazon. Amazon's made a huge play into fashion, lifestyle content on Instagram, and they're also getting into the beauty space as well. They are paying now some gamers to like switch. Gaming is like a hugely competitive space for the live streaming. And I keep hearing and reading about like, oh, there's all this other non-gaming content on Twitch, which I haven't particularly found a lot yet, but I feel like that's definitely something to watch. And if you wanted to experiment somewhere, that could be interesting to see if you're able, or especially if you had something like if one of your followers who's in the influencer space has something that's sort of like gaming adjacent, it could be really interesting to try Twitch and see if you can build up an audience there.
Can you walk me through Twitch, because I don't totally understand? Is it a platform or an app? Can you?
It's like basically for live stream. Original purpose is for like, I'm playing this game and you can watch me play this video game, like kind of like your Fortnite experience with your kids. And so you can really just start live streaming anything. And I think people will just go on there for hours. There's actually been things where like people, both on Twitch and TikTok, they'll do like live streams of themselves sleeping, which is super weird. But then like people just kind of connect with each other in the comments. I'm like, okay, definitely that's not going on my to-do list. But people are like, live streaming is obviously taken off in a huge way over the past month now. I feel like Instagram was really trying to push live for a long time, and you just didn't see that many brands going live because they don't want to take the risk. And then with influencers, I think they just also like to have like, even their YouTube videos are a little bit more edited, and now you're just seeing, at the end of the day, if I go onto Instagram, like across the top is all live. I don't know if you've noticed that on your feed as well.
All time.
I think that live, I feel like that's one thing that when we get to the other side of our like shelter in place orders, that we have nationally, I think that going live more often is going to be something that's here to stay, because it's like lower cost to produce. You can address things in a more agile fashion if you're a brand. As an influencer, I think just thinking about like, how can you like add value to your like followers' lives? How can you connect with them in a different way? I'm sure everybody's seen like DJ Nice, his like, he's just doing these like amazing, live DJ sessions like every single day, and it's super fun. And I think he actually because he'll like shout out people that logged in, and I think he shouted me out, but maybe pronounced my name wrong, but I was still like, oh my god, it's amazing. But just thinking like, okay, yeah, it's fun for them, like let's create something that keeps people entertained, interested, but thinking about like how you might use live for the longer term might be something as an influencer that you can spend some time on. And then if you're going to be creating live content, then how can you work with other platforms where live is a key feature? And this is like super random, but I was thinking about how I remember going way back when to the CNN headquarters in Atlanta, and on the wall they have this thing, and it shows like their viewers and viewing hours before and like after, or before, during, and after the Gulf War. Because everybody before then was like, why would I want news all the time? I'll just get the highlights of the news at the end of the day. And now, of course, you can't imagine not having that. And I think we're at a similar point with live streaming where it's like, of course, people are just going to be going live all the time. So
you brought up an excellent point. I wanted to go back to that for a second about other applications integrating live. So is Zoom or Cisco WebEx or BlueJeans, are they integrating? I believe Zoom right now, if you pay for the premium, you can live broadcast to YouTube. Do you know if that's happening across those platforms also?
I don't actually know. That hasn't been something I've been looking into. With Zoom, I mean, you know, their usage has gone, you know, out through the roof, obviously. But I don't know about connecting that to like the other platforms. There are tools that you can use where you can like simulcast. One interesting development though is that there's a woman on who actually like reverse engineers app updates to find out like what's in testing. She's amazing. I'll put it in your notes under your comments. But if you follow her on Twitter, you can see like all the upcoming features.
Oh my God, I would love that.
Why did that happen? So anyway, one of the things that she uncovered is that like they're looking at a way for you to go live on Instagram and Facebook at the same time, which I think is because Facebook's a bit jealous of Instagram getting all the attention in the live streaming space. But like, again, yeah, like especially you, like you have a huge following on Facebook. So being able to do it two for one would be great.
Facebook owns Instagram. That seems like just push a button, right? Like write one line of code. How hard is that?
Exactly. And I do think that like they're now letting you, something to think about for influencers too, is they're now letting you do like, I think like a donation sticker on your lives or some sort of like charitable aspect. I'll have to look into it, but because for my brands I work with, that's not been relevant. But I do think, you know, one of my predictions is that they will start enabling live stream shopping. It's huge in China. It has been for a couple of years. They did invest in a company like at the beginning of this year that does a similar technology. So that's something to think about for creators. Like, you know, if you had a QVC channel and had access to people, what would you be selling? Or would you be partnering with brands to sell product on your live stream?
Oh my, I didn't even know that. And now my brain is kind of cartwheeling.
I can see your like wheels are turning. You're like, oh.
I posted a picture of a wine beanbag the other day, which unfortunately isn't a real product, but people are like,
no,
where can I get one? Okay, thanks for that. So tell me, if you put on your like future hat, what are the apps that are going to continue to be popular over the next 8 months, and which ones do you think are going to fall off? Hi, wine and Cheez-Its. Oh, Win and Cheese. What? I don't think that's Rachel. Hi, welcome. And welcome to everybody that joined. Thank you so much. I see some familiar, wonderful names. Glad to have you. So apps that are going to stick and apps that are going to fall away.
I mean, Instagram is not going anywhere. It's, I think, only going to still be getting bigger for a little while. Facebook is, you know, it's very, very difficult to get any organic traction on Facebook anymore. So unless you already have an audience there, if you were just starting out, I wouldn't necessarily work on building a Facebook presence. Similarly with Twitter, like I love Twitter. I use it in a very specific way. I use it sort of to kind of curate news for myself, to keep up with the industry. But I think there's a ton of like entertaining content. And when you think about like what you see on the news ticker underneath, you see like, you know, it's still relevant in some ways. But if you're not going to use Twitter in a way that's really specific and native to Twitter, it's not worth it. You could maybe cross promote your content or whatever, but if you're not like engaging in like Twitter trends and memes and, you know, engaging with people in a way that feels really native to Twitter, and you kind of have like a tone of voice and for yourself as a brand that kind of works in that space, then I wouldn't necessarily invest time there. But that app isn't going anywhere. Like they're definitely going to be around. I mean, you know, I think like Facebook groups is something that, you know, depending on your specific relevant audience, that might be something that you can look into. And I think that you might get a little bit more traction than just like a regular, like, you know, just posting on your like main feed within Facebook. But I would have pronounced like Facebook Live almost dead, but now if they're kind of porting over Instagram Live content, that gives them a bit of a lifeline. But I feel like the social space is like pretty, like the apps that are around now are pretty mature and they're not going anywhere. I don't think that any of them are gonna like go the way of MySpace just yet. I think even Snapchat still has a bit of life in it. But again, it's kind of like, is it relevant to your audience? Oh, we haven't addressed TikTok, which is like kind of the obvious elephant in the room. And again, like if you're gonna get on TikTok, like just make content that's relevant to TikTok. Don't just like randomly cross post things because you won't get anywhere with that, and it's not very fun. But with TikTok, I think as an influencer, it's a really interesting space because I think for brands, it's a lot harder to create content on TikTok that doesn't make you feel like a dad joke, you know, like you want to create something that feels super fun and you know, like if you're doing a TikTok challenge or whatever, like it could fall really flat as a brand. And I also think that like creating a whole separate stream of work for TikTok, because you would have to create like separate assets for that, it's going to be really hard for almost all brands right now to do, because already like basically everybody's got to pull back on their marketing budget. So the opportunity for influencers is to create content on TikTok that would be brand friendly. And like you can be an influencer for that brand, creating TikTok and reaching this audience that they really wouldn't have another way to reach.
Well, it's interesting because I think that this Facebook is kind of stuck in this mom demographic.
Yeah.
Instagram is the nexus between the older generation and the younger generation. And then it kind of goes down into Snapchat and TikTok. For example, I know my daughter, the only way she talks to her friends is on Snapchat. And once you're allegiant to that platform, you're not going to move. That's where your whole community is. So I do think you're right in that Snapchat, probably more than TikTok, is where you kind of have to think about that as a brand and how to get on that. Are they still doing Snapchat discovery?
Yes. I was like, you know, even though I've been stuck with like many hours on my phone in this quarantine, I haven't spent as much time on Snapchat. So yeah, but I think for brands, like they've never been super friendly for like for a place for brands, but for influencers, I think the story's a bit different. I think the challenge is that it's hard. You don't know how big your audience is. And as an influencer, if you're trying to monetize, you can't really sell that to brands because you can like say, oh, I had so many people like comment back or whatever, but they really want to know your audience size and your engagement. And there's a ton of like third-party platforms and tools that like help brands find you as an influencer, but they're really going to be looking at like primarily your Instagram. Some of them look at YouTube, some of them look at Twitter and Facebook, but like a lot of these tools are really focused on finding influencers, like sort of Instagram first influencers, because it's easy for them to like get that data. So that's just something to think about. Like, I think if you were thinking about Snapchat as sort of like an add-on potentially, but if you're wanting to monetize your content and like attract brands, like Snapchat isn't going to necessarily do that for you. Right.
And then what happened to the rumor that they were going to stop posting likes on Instagram and showing how many likes? It's still around.
It is. Yeah. You know, it was not necessarily a rumor because they did confirm it.
Right. Yeah.
And they were doing that, hiding likes in other countries and testing how that impacted usage. And I mean, they claim it's for mental health, but I think it's actually the reality is people post on stories way more than main feed, and people are reticent to post on main feed because they feel like their content isn't perfect, isn't edited, like normal people. Influencers, like, right, of course they do, but they really also need to get like lots of people posting and continue posting. And so I think that's probably still on the table, but I think, you know, they probably have to shift focus to like, you know, meet the current moment. And I think they would be focusing more on like, you know, updates to live and other stuff like that. So I haven't heard that it's not going to happen, but they never really give a timeline either. So I would still think that maybe by the end of the year, that might be the case.
Okay. Yeah. Because I thought by time, I'm sorry, you know, I had the coronavirus. I swear to God, I lost the entire month of mental capacity. That like 6 months ago, I thought it was going to be rolled out, and then I haven't heard or seen anything.
You're right. I know. I'm glad you mentioned that. Like, I'll do a little bit of research to see the countries where they've hidden the likes, if that's still the case. Because I think I would have seen it in the like sort of industry press if they're like, no, we're turning likes back on in Brazil and Australia or wherever. And I haven't seen that, but I can double check.
Okay. Yeah, I'd just be interested to know. And I mean, to your point, what was the psychological reasoning behind that? And what were the metrics to say if it was a success or not?
Yeah, I mean, they didn't publicly say how they were going to judge that. And again, I think they tried to like pull it off as a mental health move, but my cynical self doesn't believe that's the case.
Well, that's why you're good at your job. So, but is it, as the content owner, I can still see how many likes?
Oh yeah, you'll always be able to see it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah.
That was confusing. Yik Yak, around anymore? Totally dead?
Oh, and I don't know. I think it's dead.
I think it's dead. I think it's one of those that never got moving too much. You mentioned a podcast before. I know that you've always given me the best advice. What podcasts are you listening to that for influencers that want to kind of keep abreast of the changes?
Oh, let's see. I mean, the podcast I listen to might not be the most relevant for influencers. I mean, if you're an influencer, first of all, think about starting a podcast. I mean, actually, there's a joke that like, you know, oh my God, like there's the worst sign of the pandemic is that like Amazon is out of podcast mics and like everybody and their brother is starting a podcast. But like podcasting has been around for, you know, over a decade. It just kind of had this like new resurgence in the last few years. And similarly, I'd say the same thing as I said before, like if you have your own unique voice, your own story, your own, you know, take on content. So don't let that stop you if you feel like this is the right like medium for you. But in terms of listening to, like, I would listen to other creators in your niche. I would listen to, I mean, the ones that I listen to are like HBR, and I listen to Recode, Decode, and Pivot, which are the sort of Vox Media, Kara Swisher podcasts, which I'm just like totally addicted to. But I think that's a lot of like business news to cull through, and if, you know, everybody's pressed for time, so I'm not sure that would be like a mandatory for influencers. One account I could say to follow, and I don't know if they have a podcast, but I would say as a influencer, Later, which is the like scheduling tool. Of all the ones that I've seen and follow, like, you know, whether it's Sprout, Hootsuite, whatever, they all have content that's like for like brands and businesses, but I feel like they have the best content for that's like applicable to businesses as well as creators. So I would follow them on Instagram and like look at some of their content and then get on their email list, versus necessarily like following a podcast. Podcasts too, like it has to be something you're already into if you're using it for like knowledge acquisition, because it's like, I don't know, I can listen to certain podcasts at like 1.5 speed, depending, and then kind of like, you know, and do it while I'm cleaning the house so I can like, you know, get more info. But in other cases, it's, you know, like if you don't have it built into your commute or whatever, like, you know, it's probably faster to just like, you know, read through something.
I want to go back for a second. Was it called Later, Later?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm gonna have to, I should be taking notes because there's all these things I mentioned and I can just put them in your comments.
Well, don't freak out. We're a very low tech group here. You know, we get it. Fantastic. If not, we're totally chill. We're not that professional. Okay, so I'm gonna look at Later. In terms of Planoly and Later and Hootsuite and Sprout and HubSpot, in terms of your research, is there one that you recommend higher than another one?
It really depends on like, so I'm looking from a brand point of view. So it really depend on business requirements. So like how many different people need to access it and what's the approval flow. And so that's not really relevant probably for most of your influencers. So I think that Later is a pretty good tool, and you can get the free version. So I would try that as something to start out with. You know, if you had a specific need, I don't know what it would be like as an influencer, like, you know, whether it's like being able to like have somebody, if you have someone else that you work with, like your partner is your manager or something like that, and you want them to review content, then maybe look at a different tool that allows for that. But even so, I think, as an influencer, you're probably best to keep costs low and use a free tool that, gives you at least 80% of what you need. And then sometimes you might need to like post natively. And, I think that's probably still workable. So I would go with Later as a reco.
All right. Well, I've taken up some of your time, but I want to give you like one last time. What are your high two Ps? If you've got 3 bullet points, 3 things that you would want influencers to walk away from this and be like, okay, these are the 3 things I need to do to help get myself a little more socially friendly. What would they be?
Okay. Roll up your sleeves and put in some sweat equity. And that involves building your community one by one by one by one. And it's slow going, and you'll think, oh my God, I'm spending all this time and nothing's happening. And it's going to be like that until all of a sudden it isn't. And I guarantee you, if you put the time in, you will get the results. It's like, I've seen it time and again. So that's like number 1. It's almost like 1 through 3. I guess we didn't talk about, for influencers specifically, I think it's kind of standard advice, but probably bears repeating, is to post with some regularity. And so thinking about like posting every day, or depending on your content, or maybe you're doing YouTube videos and like you have a weekly schedule. And that's kind of like time-honored advice that I think has kind of outlived algorithm changes and everything else. That seems to be something that is beneficial to all creators. And then I think finally, like if you are an influencer looking to monetize your content, also we didn't cover this, but I think thinking about, thinking from a brand point of view, like, is my content, what brands might be attracted to my content, and like understand like what audience you're attracting. And so in other words, if you are posting like stuff that's just like all over the place, a brand doesn't know who you are and who your audience is and how to connect with you. So if one day you're posting like makeup selfies, and the next day you're posting like, I organized my sock drawer, and the next day you're like, you can ultimately do all of those things, because if you think about like, huge people and celebrities, they can post about a number of things, but to build your audience, you got to start small and focused, and create content that, you want to be yourself, but if you're trying to monetize your content, you have to think about being a place where brands feel confident that you're not going to create crazy like influencer drama, or, I mean, you can do that if you're Jeffree Star, but let's just assume that most people aren't Jeffree Star. And then you're not going to, I mean, there's some brands, one thing I mentioned to you before, Whitney, was like, there's some brands that like, maybe they're looking for influencers that they post beautiful makeup selfies, but, maybe that's 30% of their content, and then the rest is like bikini shots, like that's really fine for some brands, right? They might be like, okay, fine, like you're attracting an audience and like whatever. But for other brands, they might be like, well, we're a more refined brand. We want more elegant content, and we want like really just focus like 80% of your content on beauty. So we know that when someone is partnering with you, or like when we're partnering with you, your followers are interested in beauty specifically, and so it's like worth our time engaging with you, gifting you, paying you, etc. So those are the 3.
Do you, in your experience with influencers, I know we can't talk about like how much brands are paying influencers, because I also know that is all over the map. Are brands still paying influencers, or is it because the influx of so many influencers driving that cost down?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a mixed bag. You want to be able to show value. So there's actually a few things that you can do. I think one is, if you haven't really partnered with brands before, then think about like, being able to just be reaching out to brands and just doing it in exchange for like basically the product. And then even though that, it feels like as a creator, like that maybe that your time isn't getting valued. It's a lot of effort and time on the brand side too, to kind of build up like their contacts and, working with people that are unproven to them and stuff like that. So think about it as like building a relationship. And if you're posting and, even if you just were gifted and not paid, and then you, are starting to show some traction and people are interested in your content, like that could develop into a partnership later. There's also like other, like influencer companies that like brands work with, like a third party like platform. So you can think about reaching out to brands like like Stratosphere is a good one. That like they only select a certain number, like they vet all of their influencers. So, but if you get onto their list, then you have an opportunity to partner with brands. I lost track of getting paid. But the other thing I was going to say is that brands right now in this very moment that we're in, they can't do photo shoots, right? But influencers can. So, but they are getting paid for that. They because it could do like full production suite. So, you know, it might be hard as if you're brand new trying to get into that, but if you're an influencer that has a bit of an audience or a little bit of a track record, you know, reach out to your brands that you've worked with in the past, or even, you know, similar brands to ones that you've worked with. And, you know, you can say like, hey, I'm able to do this. I can produce this type of content. I just need your product. And like, you know, here are my rates or whatever. You know, it's worth a reach out. I do think that like a lot of brands like work through PR agencies and work through these third parties. So it can be a little bit challenging to kind of get those relationships underway. But, you know, if you can invest the time in reaching out to people, you know, again, they can't do, a photo shoot requires like a dozen people, right? And they just can't gather a dozen people together right now. And if you're an influencer and you have someone at home, or you have a good tripod and ring light and whatever, unlike me, so then you can produce that content for them.
That is an excellent point. So Stratosphere is one of the ones you mentioned. Is there any other off the top of your heads?
Octoly. There's a whole bunch of them. I know that like, I mean, there's a ton of that are like, oh, we have millions of influencers. Well, that just means they like know how to scrape data. Like they don't have like a million influencer relationships. You can think about like looking at going directly to PR agencies and trying to build relationships with PR agents. I think that's, you know, something that's maybe a little easier if you're kind of in like LA, New York market. But yeah, like it was actually like over 1 per day influencer, like network companies started last year. Like it's insane, like explosion in sort of like the influencer technology space. So
I'm going to ask you a question, because I've been courted by one called Activate, and the problem that I get to this wall with them because they want your name and your how many followers, and then there's this one little button that says we want access to your account and we want the ability to delete your comments, and you know, basically go in and delete comments and comment. And I was like, I don't want brands to have that level of access to my followers.
That sounds a bit dodgy to me. I'm not aware of that. I wouldn't do that.
Exactly.
I mean,
and I was like,
yeah, they might want, and it might, maybe that's a default setting with the like OAuth or whatever. Like some of them might want to have like access to your account so that like they can save content from your stories and stuff like that. But I don't know. I can look into that one for you. But yeah, I would be really hesitant to like agree to let someone delete my comments or comment on behalf of you as an influencer. Like that's a risk for you as a brand.
I totally thought that too. And I think if I read it was like they also had the right to delete your videos, which
no,
I don't think so. I want to go back to one thing that you said earlier, just to post regularly. Now that means a lot of different things to different people. Is there a recommended posting cadence that you've seen?
The posting cadence that is individual to every account. So I've worked with some brands that like surprisingly post like 40 times a day. And I was like flabbergasted that that's actually working for them, but it is. So I wouldn't recommend that to like almost anybody else because the amount of effort to do that is extraordinary. A lot of brands, like the vast majority of like smaller brands, DTC brands, they're posting like once a day on Instagram. Again, like people are spending a lot more time on Instagram, and there's actually fewer ads on Instagram right now. So you have a better opportunity to capture capture attention.
Yeah.
I think it's like what works for you. And like, you don't want to put out crappy content just so you're posting every single day, right? Like, so if you think like, oh, I'm creating like 3 videos a week, just continue that cadence. If you're curating content and posting memes or whatever, and like you're able to, then, you know, try posting every day. And what you do is like follow along, because you could see like how many people you're reaching. So there's not just the engagement number, but also the impressions. And so if you go from posting once a day to posting twice a day, you might not get 2x the impressions. Like your both posts, you might not get like double, right? But if you're getting like 180%, then it's 2 plus or 1 plus 1 is still more than, well, actually that was a bad analogy, but it's still worth the effort. And then just, start thinking about like, what's the right balance between like creating the content and then like supporting that content with that engagement that I was talking about.
Yeah. Okay, I have taken so much of your time and kept you longer than I told you I would. So I know you have a little one at home and an actual job to get back to. So I really adore you, and I'm so grateful for the time. And
anything, it was a great chatting with you. And like, I feel, we should have had a glass of wine going. I don't know why we didn't think of that. That should have been what maybe next time we'll do it later in the evening. So.
Well, I'd love to have you back because there's so many people on my channel that need to listen and hear about what's going on from your perspective. Because like I said, you're always on that 70,000 foot view of the industry. And it's always wonderful to talk to you.
It's my pleasure to be here with you. Thank you so much for inviting me, and love to chat with you again soon, whether live or actually not live, and so therefore I don't have to do my eyebrows or makeup.
I know. And Tokyo Tomiko says thank you. So I agree with her, and lots of waves. Hi, Inga. I hope you're doing well. It's been fun to watch some people come back to these lives every day and recognizing their names. So I'm really grateful you guys tuned in, and you'll love Devon L. West on Instagram. She's
I'm like, I'll post some up. I have my own content series just for my own like shits and giggles. Basically, I'm not an influencer trying to build an audience, but I just like to be creative every now and again. So I think I'm due to post some stuff. I've got some ideas. So
well, you also have that really neat little thing where you did like book reviews in 1 second, I always really look forward to those.
Oh yeah, I mean, I know we're like signing off here, but my so I actually have a little backstory, which is I do enjoy that, and I was kind of like I read the books anyway, and it was kind of a reminder of like, oh, so I can go back and remind myself. So I just called it unsolicited book reviews. But now actually I did have people going like, where are your book reviews? Because everybody's like needing stuff to do. So I'm like, okay. Now they're like unsolicited. But way back when I started out being engaged in social media, I started a blog. And my blog, I did 5-word reviews of theater shows. This is when I lived in London. So I'd done like review content for a long time, and I actually got in the print edition of Time magazine for my blog back then. I mean, it didn't like do anything for me, but other than like it was a fun little moment. So
because Time, what they're doing is they're like, what is in the zeitgeist of the time, and you obviously had a piece of content that resonated with people and they wanted to promote.
It was like short form that was like pre-Twitter, so that's how old I am. But
that's great.
But anyway, so I'm like, I like to keep the reviews like actually like really hard to do a review that's like super short, but also meaningful and not just like but throw a bunch of adjectives. So it's kind of like a fun creative challenge. And that's actually something too, like thinking about your influencers, like creating like more of a content series that they kind of become known for. And that can give them like some inspiration and structure to what their content is, and how they kind of like fill that week full of content.
So true. Okay, welcome.
All right,
guys.
we gotta really go now. I gotta go check on homeschool. And I also turned off my computer and my Slack messages. So if anybody's trying to get a hold of me, they're gonna be like, where did she go?
I know, and I know you're so busy. So thanks, you guys. And I think we all agree we need to have Devon back because she's super.
Oh, so nice. Okay, we'll see you soon. Have a great day.
Bye, love.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Thanks so much for joining. I will put my smart hat on and figure out how to download this and get them on YouTube or on IGTV for you guys to watch again if anybody that missed it. And if you will just bear with me a second because I am learning this as we go. I'm going to check to see if I can put a filter on myself. That is not the filter I want. Bye, Tokyo. Thank you. I just want to look younger. Where's that filter? There we go. Okay. All right. I didn't realize you could do filters for Instagram Live. Now I'm super smart. Hey, C Fiore, how are you doing? Thanks again, guys, for joining us. Great to have you. Tokyo, thank you so much. And we'll have Devon back and you guys can think about questions. I know can I just have this filter around me at all times? I don't know about you guys, but the eyelash extensions that I got put on 4 weeks ago are like, every day I lose one. It's just like down they go. And I can't decide if I'm going to go back to my eyelash person, my hairdresser first, or the manicurist. Like, they are all the things that I need to like run back to desperately because I'm starting to look like a bridge troll. I'm sure you don't because you're better looking than me, but it's getting bad. Like, at one point my husband's just gonna be like, yeah, I don't know who that person is. So pluck, shave, wax, do whatever you need, guys, to keep yourself sane, and drink wine. And thank you guys for joining. Talk to you later.